Alright guys, this is Dr. Jesse Morse with the Fantasy Doctors. Today I want to talk about the Eagles Carson Wentz. And this is more about the timing and activation of his knee injury and playing on Sunday versus the actual injury itself, because obviously it's not new. So let me kind of take you back to when he had the knee injury, what he had, and we'll go from there. So he suffered the knee injury December 10th, 2017, and a win at LA when he basically kind of went into the end zone. He got hit in a weird angle, didn't even think anything of it. He basically played a couple more plays, if I remember correctly. Yeah, here it is. Wentz took a shot to the lower half on a TD run. The shot was by Mark Barron, which was eventually negated. He played 4 plays more. Wentz then threw a touchdown to Alshon Jeffrey. He went to the medical tent under his own power and then went to the locker room. And then we found out later that he ended up tearing his ACL. But not only did he tear his ACL, he also tore his LCL. Now, the ACL and PCL are crisscrossing in the middle of the knee. The ACL is in the front, and it kind of prevents forward translation of the knee from buckling forward. It is important in obviously cutting maneuvers and stuff like that. The PCL is the one that crisscrosses, and it kind of prevents backward translation of that knee. Now, the MCL is the ligament that runs north to south on the inner aspect of the knee. The LCL is the one that runs north to south on the lateral or outer aspect of the knee. Now, based on what they're telling us, he suffered both an ACL and an LCL tear. So already talking about 2 different ligaments that were injured. But there's some rumblings, and I can't confirm this because A, I didn't see the medical reports, and B, I didn't see his evaluate the knee myself. So it sounds like he possibly could have injured his posterolateral corner. So that's exactly what it sounds like. The problem is this is a very significant injury. If it did have a posterolateral corner, the stability can be very challenging. There's a lot of small tendons, ligaments, and structures in there that are difficult to rehab and repair. So let's talk about a routine ACL replacement reconstruction surgery and timelines. So ideally you want 9 to 12 months return to play. With that, you get a 94% success rate with a 6% re-tear rate. However, there is a 6-fold increase in risk of a second ACL surgery compared to healthy subjects. 30% of athletes suffered a second ACL tear within 24 months of return, where 21% of them was the opposite leg ACL, and the other one had, and then the remaining 9% had that and a second, the same knee, a second tear. So why is this important? Because this contralateral knee is exactly what Deshaun Watson had. He had the one knee ACL tear in college, opposite knee tore last year. So this isn't just, oh, it happens once in a million. No, this happens a lot. What else is the problem? The other problem I have is that unlike a genetic freak like, and maybe Carson Wentz is, like Adrian Peterson, who came back in 6 months, which is unheard of and very rare, that is not recommended for most people. That is very challenging. That's a very accelerated timeline, and you need to give this stuff time to heal. You need to get the appropriate strength in the new ligament that was created or borrowed. And then on top of that, you want to add in the fact that he not only tore the ACL, but he also tore the LCL and a possible posterolateral corner. So anytime you have 2 ligament injury, an ACL plus a second one, you're typically looking at ideally closer to 14 months return to play. So now let's think about where we are now. So he had the surgery, he had the injury around the 10th of December of 2017. It sounds like he went to Dr. James Bradley on December 13th, 3 days after sustaining the injury. So that basically gives us about 10 months. So I just told you 9 to 12 months for a routine ACL tear. We're at 10 months. Okay, that's fine. But I also just told you it was 14 months for 2 different ligaments, regular, and we're not talking about a mediocre player. We're not talking about, just a regular guy going back to working at an office. You're talking about someone who needs to stress the ligament, who needs to avoid defenders. You're talking about someone who is potentially the face of the franchise, who will likely try to play for the next 10 to 15 years. This is not something you rush. So did the poor play of Nick Foles come into this decision? Probably, but I hope it didn't. The problem is you can't rush these things based on another player's poor performance. But we know that if you bury yourself too quickly, too soon in the NFL, that it's very, very difficult to come back from, and it's very hard to make the playoffs. So if they start 1-4 or 1-5, their season's pretty much done. The odds of coming back are very challenging. Whereas if they come out 2-2, 2-3, they may have a better odds. I haven't looked at the statistics, but that's my biggest concern. I don't, based on just generalized numbers and some video that I've seen of him, I don't think he's completely ready. But it sounds like he was targeting week 3 all along, for what it's worth, and it's week 3, and it sounds like he's going to try to play against the Colts. I hope he does good. I wish him the best of luck. I think he can't be any worse than Nick Foles, because Foles has looked pretty bad the past couple weeks. But either way, I don't think he's ready, but I think they're kind of pushing him along because they don't really have much of a choice. And, Wentz is chomping at the bit to come back, which I understand. It's just normal. But you have to temper your expectations with him. We will talk about Alshon Jeffrey in a different video about an update for him, but that's my thoughts on him. I will talk further about this with my partner in crime, Dr. Salim Parekh, on the Fantasy Doctors podcast and video podcast that we're going to tape tomorrow night. So tune into that. Those are my thoughts. I have not seen any of the medical literature in particular to Wentz, so I don't know any specifics on his injury. But based on what we've heard, based on the information allowed, this is a pretty significant injury, and he's not quite out of the rehab window yet, even with the best staff in the world available to him, presumably. Sounds like his throwing motion is good, so that's good. But be careful of his mobility. Be careful of someone else hitting him from the back, kind of like Wilson was getting pummeled last night. Expect that. If he gets hit with that and he tweaks this injury, don't tell I didn't tell you so. I told you so. But stay tuned. I want nothing to do with Wentz from a fantasy perspective for the next couple of weeks. Maybe a GPP flyer at best until he proves that he's mobile and that he has the kind of accuracy and arm strength and everything that he had last year before the injury. I wish him the best of luck. This is Dr. Jesse Morse with the Fantasy Doctors. Stay tuned for more information as it comes out. All right, take care. Thanks.